Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss the news that Rishi Sunak has now completely morphed into Boris Johnson, as he's also playing games in trying to avoid handing over government WhatsApp messages to the COVID inquiry. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel. So in November and December, the COVID inquiry is due to consider evidence from the senior decision makers, such as Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson. I think Boris Johnson is now slated to attend the inquiry in early December. Now, they'd ordered all government records from the relevant time be handed over. We already know that Boris Johnson was being evasive about this. He insists he's cooperating fully with the inquiry. No, he's not. But now Rishi Sunak is doing the same. But let's catch up with the Boris Johnson bit first, because, quite a while people said, what's happening with the Boris Johnson's phone messages? And I was like, well, I don't know. So he claimed he had to change his phone for security reasons, and that it wasn't possible to download the WhatsApp messages safely because, if we turned the phone on, hackers and everything like that, which is a load of rubbish. There's absolute hogwash. Easy to turn the phone off in a secure environment, download the messages and so on. So after a High Court case, it magically transpired that actually it could be done safely. And then as far as I was concerned, the messages had been downloaded by a technical team. That had actually happened. We were told that the relevant messages had been passed on to the inquiry. I did not like that inclusion of the word relevant there. I've not seen any reports independently verifying that the inquiry is happy with whatever he has handed over. However, this updated report in The Guardian suggests that it is still missing the crucial messages from the end of January 2020 to early June 2020. Now, that is the most important period of time as far as pandemic decision making went. It covers the entire period of time that Boris Johnson was not attending Cobra meetings. It covers the entire period of time where the government was getting its response ready. Johnson claims that the technical team couldn't extract those particular messages, but they don't know why. Now, call me cynical. I'm not buying this. Way too convenient that Johnson, for a long time, was avoiding handing over messages from that entire 2020 period. And then he sort of goes, oh, yeah, we could do this thing, and hands some over, but not the most crucial ones. That period of time when we most needed leadership, but also when he was being most cavalier about the threat, not turning up to Cobra meetings, taking it on the chin and all that. But now Rishi Sunak's playing the same game. He's claiming that he's changed his phone several times and not backed up the messages. Now, before I go further, I am going to point out that these are records of government meetings involving ministers. There is a duty to preserve them. Frankly, they shouldn't have been using WhatsApp at all for government decisions, or discussions rather. But if they were going to, records have to be taken and kept by officials. Sunak doesn't get to say, oh, sorry, I didn't back them up, as if he's trying to explain to his wife why he's lost the family holiday photos. These are records of government discussions involving ministers, and the rules are very clear. Those records are preserved, and by officials. They're not to be left to ministers to archive them. The rules stipulate that they cover records in any format, so the fact it's WhatsApp messaging doesn't matter. So I see no reason to claim that WhatsApp is different. If they were to have a telephone if they were to have discussions between ministers and officials on the telephone, records would have to be made of that and preserved. At the end of the day, they used WhatsApp to have discussions between ministers and officials. We know that from some of the leaks. Those records have to be kept. Cannot emphasize that enough. They have to be kept. The rules are quite clear. In fact, the rules say that the minister must transfer the information to support staff. Like I say, they're not supposed to manage the records themselves. They are supposed to make sure officials are maintaining the records. You have to wonder at what point something like misconduct in public office should be considered here. Because this is all bang against the rules. The missing messages which Sunak has failed to secure for the COVID inquiry is reported to include decision making on the Eat Out to Help Out scheme, for example, which is believed to have driven the wave which caused the second lockdown, and of course a load of extra deaths. The inquiry needs to know what discussions were had at the time. They cannot rely on the hazy account of a former Chancellor, now Prime Minister, who is motivated to cover his own arse. In fact, if either Boris Johnson or Rishi Sunak or any other senior minister at the inquiry tries to claim in response to a question that, oh, sorry, I can't remember, it was a few years ago now, I hope Baroness Hallett tells them very sternly, yes, your shit memory is the reason you're supposed to maintain records of your discussions, you abject cretin. She can phrase it more politely if she likes. What we're seeing here is an incredibly obvious attempt to hide the decision-making process from the public inquiry because they know their decision-making process was not in the public interest. They haven't failed to back these messages up. They've had these discussions on WhatsApp with the specific intention of destroying or concealing those records later on. And whatever happens, we must reform things so that ministerial rules are no longer an optional feature. Failing to preserve records of ministerial meetings in any format needs to be more than just a breach of the rules for which there's no meaningful penalty. It needs to be on the same level as doing the same thing at a corporate level. Ministers who do not take responsibilities like this seriously need to be subject to the same legal hazards as an executive of a corporation. For the cavalier way in which Sunak and Johnson are covering their tracks by effectively destroying evidence, there should be criminal offences with stiff custodial sentences lying in wait for them. There won't be, because the law doesn't say that that is the case. I mean, I don't know if there's any legal force that can compel them to take this inquiry more seriously right now. But I do know there needs to be in future so that we don't get this happening again. If Rishi Sunak tries to claim, or a future Rishi Sunak saying the same situation tries to claim, sorry, I didn't back them up, they need to be told, well, it's your responsibility to have passed those messages on to officials at the time. You failed to do so, off you go to prison for 10 years. Because it's bad enough when something like this is allowed to happen. What's unforgivable is if you allow it to happen a second time because you didn't change anything. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.